So let me get this straight. Your mom didn't clap when you said you're now non-binary with your healing crystal Etsy shop. And instead of talking it out, you blocked her and posted about your toxic upbringing. Yeah, definitely not narcissistic at all.
We used to fight with our parents and make up over dinner. Now y'all write them off like a bad Tinder date. Didn't vibe, blocked, self-care.
Welcome to the generation of emotional toddlers in adult bodies. Welcome back to Outspoken, the podcast where truth doesn't need your permission slip and emotional damage isn't an identity.
Especially if your therapist told you to cut out anyone who doesn't support your truth. And now we've ghosted your dad for saying your OnlyFans isn't a career plan.
Today's episode is called Unfollow Your Parents, and we're calling out the epidemic of adult kids cutting off their own families, not because of abuse or deep trauma, but because they were told if someone doesn't affirm every emotion you have, they're toxic.
Newsflash, that's not healing. The cowardice wrapped in self-love slogans. We've raised a generation grown adults to think love is conditional, hard conversations are abuse, and any challenge to their ego is a red flag. And you all know about red flags.
So buckle up, because today we're unpacking how protecting your peace has become a license to burn every bridge that keeps you accountable, starting with mom and dad. Hey, listen, before we get started, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit the bell icon to get updated when we upload a new episode. Let's get into this.
All right, Jay, so here we are in 2025, right? Do you remember back in the times when family dinner was the norm, right? We all sat at the family dinner table.
Absolutely.
Ate and did what, had our conversations. Dad had his stories. Mom was like trying to bring more food and telling you to eat this and lying to you.
You're getting too skinny. You're getting too skinny.
Yeah, and lying to you about that steak, telling you it's a real good T-bone and it's liver. Bro, that's trauma. That is trauma. Okay,
yeah,
for
right.
me.
The clue should have been all the onions on top of your steak.
You ain't wrong. So anyway, that family dinner table has been replaced by like Reddit threads and TikTok therapists whispering, your parents are toxic if they don't validate your feeling. Here's the crazy thing. We have to be clear about this. There are toxic parents, right? There really is. I mean, we've talked about it in the past in other episodes, how some parents are just not supposed to be.
Right.
Some people genuinely need distance. But this new culture, bro, it's become like a purge of anyone who holds like a mirror up to you. Everyone's a self-made life coach. They're the new guru of mental health. And it's just ridiculous because, let me be honest with you, I've scrolled through TikTok to the tickety talk and I see so much people just creating these TikToks, all fabricated, all lies. And so they're not controlled. And it's a platform. It's a social media platform where people are allowed to really just do whatever they want that, short of being naked or killing somebody. It's no longer like, oh, I disagree with mom. It's mom is emotionally unsafe, right? Because she didn't celebrate my decision to drop out, to dye my hair blue and start like a side hustle reading tarot cards on Etsy. If you don't validate them, it's almost like the transgender generation, right? If you don't validate them, you're a homophobe, you're transphobe. That's the problem I think that we're having, is that we've kind of swapped honor and patience for canceling our own bloodlines that enable mental health. And that's dangerous, right? Because, I mean, let's be honest. Do I have to validate you? Do I have to say, good for you, Billy? I'm glad you cut your hair blue and you pierced every single orifice on your body. I think it looks great. Why do you need my validation? And I think that's the problem, that our generation was the generation of insults, right? Our parents would like if you're raised in a Mexican family, you have thick skin because no one roasts you more than your own family.
Right.
And we roast you. We call people opposites. Like if we have a cousin that's chubby, we call him flaco, which is totally opposite of.
That's why I never went around your family, man. So
here we go. All of a sudden. But that's the problem. That's the thing I'm talking about, is that we've made people soft. How do we change that? How do we change people from being so soft and not realizing that their parents are toxic, but they were trying to teach them a lesson, right? Trying to raise your kids is not easy.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on. And, we've talked about this before, that COVID had a lot to do with things that were going on. So there is a chart out there that talks about, and I'm not picking picking on the transgender folks. However, chart out there that shows that in 2020, there is a huge boost in the amount of transgender identifying people the ages of 18 to 24, right? And I mean, it goes from just before 2020, you were at 0.59% of the populace overall, less than 1%, to well over 3% in 2023. And it just keeps exponentially growing ever since. And the ages of 25 to 34 is starting to grow now because those people that were 18, back in 2019 and 2020 are now getting into that 25-year-old age, right? So what are the things that created that? Well, a lot of these folks were at home, and we've said how much of a detrimental effect that the solitude, not being around normal people. And you and I have said this before, and I don't agree with bullying. However, when we were in school,
Tell that to our parents.
Yeah, our parents bullied us. Other people, our peers bullied us. And so it's not that you were forced, but you had a peer group, parents, teachers, other kids, church, football, for you, cheerleading class, all these kind of things. And what did they do? We cheered. You cheered. They molded the way you were going to live your life, right?
Yeah.
They gave you basic fundamentals. Well, we had this period of time where all of that disappeared. Most of the parents still had to go to work. Maybe some of them did stay home, but now these kids are isolated. They don't have this peer group for a year, 2 years, almost 3 years. And they lost a lot of that. And what did they do? Exactly what you were saying at the beginning of this. They were living on TikTok. They were living on Instagram and all the other social media platforms that were telling them you're gay. The reason you feel isolated is because
you're in the wrong body.
You're in the wrong body and all this kind of stuff. And that's what really created that. I'm not denying that there aren't people that have tendencies towards things, right? Again, we've said this in previous episodes before. When we were kids, what did you think you wanted to be? I wanted to be Superman. I want to be, your parents shouldn't say, well, he's identifying as Superman, so we let him jump off roofs everywhere. Yeah, it's probably not a good idea, guys.
But we did do it.
But we did do it. Yeah. Got broken ankles to prove it, right?
But here's the thing, though. Those are like little self-reality checks because clearly we couldn't fly. And when we jumped off that roof, it was very obvious. And
I was very disappointed that I couldn't fly.
Well, you know what? I blamed it on weight, and I stopped eating for a week.
I was a lot thinner back then.
So
let's smaller.
I definitely was. I thought I was light. I could just kind of float down like a feather. But here, let's get it. And you made some really good points, because if we make some comparisons, back when we grew up, you and I, Generation Xers, the number one generation of the entire universe, we were left alone. Right? We used to carry our keys in a little
latchkey kids,
in those little remember those little balls and locks chains they put around our necks, and our keys would be on there. After school, we'd go home, find something to eat, make a sandwich, whatever, and then we'd do our homework, and then we'd be in the street for the rest of the day until our parents got home and made dinner.
Until those street lights turned on.
And so you made a valid point. Parents were not as involved in how we grew up. I mean, they disciplined us at home, but what I'm saying is they weren't like in the mix as far as us running around like crazy kids doing this and doing that. You take that away. You take the development of a child away from being a child, and you enclose them in a cubicle. And in this case, a cubicle is your room because of the COVID. And this is what happens. So let's talk about the psychology of manufactured narcissism, right? Let's talk about how it started. Now, this self-help movement, which was meant to heal, right, turned into a self-worship movement, right? And you said it, you hit it right on the money. Where did this start developing? TikTok, right? Instagram. All these therapists, right, are preaching, protect your peace, but never mentions humility or reconciliation. It's a very selfish way to look at things, right? The self-love has become like a religion, bro. It's become something like, oh, no, that affects my inner peace. Don't talk to me that way. The only sin, accountability. You cannot hold these people accountable because it affects their self-love and their mental stability, right? So like if your dad told you to get a job, right? Or your mom said, hey, maybe therapy isn't the answer to everything, right? Cut them off. Instant villain, right? They're like, how dare you speak of my therapy that way? They gave me suckers at the end, but that's crazy because, in the phase, like if they don't serve your healing, let them go. That's what they're telling them. That's what these self-made therapists are telling them. Like if it's not beneficial to you, if it doesn't help your inner growth, cut them off. They're no good to you. Let them go. We're talking about your parents, bro. You're not talking about, a girl or a guy that's creating chaos in your life. We're talking about your parents, right? That's the most selfish crock that I've heard. Like, how could anyone say that, let alone believe it? Healing doesn't mean avoiding every hard conversation, right? It means growing through them, right? And the only way you could do it, remember, you're a child. You think you know everything, right? Like, I'm sure you went through that phase where you thought you knew everything
I thought my
until
parents were idiots.
right. Until the belt came out, then you knew that you knew nothing, right? Or you actually cut yourself, burnt yourself, or hurt yourself in a way that, like, oh, maybe I should have listened to my parents, right?
Yeah.
And not turn it back around with zero accountability and say, well, if you guys weren't talking to me so much about that and disturbed my inner peace, I would have been able to focus and not jumped off the building. What the hell's wrong with you? What's happened to this generation? I think the problem is they've gotten too selfish. They've gotten too much into their own comfort. Now, everything that disturbs them, everything that I've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it on TV. Now it's like in shows and TVs, it's portrayed as normal. A mom goes into their daughter's room and says, clean up this room. And she's like, goes crazy. It's like, you're disturbing my inner peace. I got so much going on and blah, 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 right? That's our culture now, and calling your mom toxic for setting boundaries isn't a brave thing, bro. It's like, it's cowardice in a cardigan. That's what it is. You cannot, and I stress this, you cannot continue living your life with zero accountability. And I think that's where this narcissism comes in for these kids today, or these adults now that are growing up and they have an issue. Let's say someone says, hey man, why do you behave that way? Why do you react that way when someone tells you something? And the first thing they're gonna go to is like, my parents were toxic. Instead of holding themselves accountable for their own response, they have to blame someone else. That's a very dangerous line, because as you get older, as your family, you start creating a family, you start having children, that same mentality is going to be fed into the next generation. And that's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, I agree. There's this line in, you remember the movie As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson? And anyways, there's this one scene where the girl comes up to him and she's like, oh my God, because Jack Nicholson, for those of you that haven't seen the movie, don't want to give any thing away on it.
You can't handle the truth.
Wrong movie, but right actor.
That's right actor.
Yeah, right actor. He is a famous, kind of famous writer, but he writes these books and everything. And she comes up to Jack Nicholson's character and says, how do you write women so well?
How do you write women so well?
I think of a man, and I take away reason and accountability.
That line has stuck with me for so many years. Now, that is obviously towards the, female persuasion, but that is what the generational problem is that reason and accountability have been washed away. You don't need to have either. As long as it emotionally suits your needs emotionally, then that's okay, right? It doesn't matter about anything else. And when you have people that base everything off their emotions, they will make the wrong decisions for happiness, and it will be detrimental to themselves and others and the world around them, right? So we do have to have reason when we're making decisions on things, right? Because if it was all emotional based, we would all just sit around and eat ice cream all day, right? And
we do that now. So
we do that now. So we took away
clearly emotional scars in our life.
Seriously, that little analogy is the basis of all of this. And then you take it even farther. I mean, I know we've heard things like, when should you allow a person to start getting tattooed? It's supposed to be 18 years old. Well, why wouldn't you allow a 7-year-old that wanted to get Taylor Swift tattooed on her because she's 7 years old, she loves Taylor Swift, wants to get a Taylor Swift tattoo on her arm? Why wouldn't we let her do that? That's the way she feels.
Well,
right?
Because they don't understand.
They don't understand the repercussions it's going to be on their body for the rest of their life, and that it's scarring to their body, because that's basically what a tattoo is, right?
And it hurts.
Yeah, and it hurts. But the thing is, why? Why would it matter? I mean, they're 7 years old. They know what they're. However, we're going to go into hormone blockers now for this little girl because she thinks she's a little boy, or she thinks she's a furry or something crazy like that, right? We're going to go ahead and allow all that kind of stuff. There is an agenda out there to change the young folks, which in turn changes the middle age and then the older folks in the next and upcoming generations. And it's one of those things that's been slow. We've seen it slowly happening. So there was a couple of things during the period of COVID, right? So we already spoke about it, that you had a huge shift in mentality in those age groups. The other thing, the reason it's been brought to light is because of that same time period. Parents were walking by, seeing their kids on the Zoom classroom calls or whatever it was, and they're now seeing what their kids are actually being taught and not taught in school. And my problem with the whole thing is that school has been basically, since we were in school, it's the same amount of hours per day. In fact, it's went down a little bit in hours because now they, some Wednesdays they are half days and Mondays and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then teacher conferences are half days and
teacher and
all
service
this kind of stuff
and stuff like that.
Yeah, all those kind of things. But for the most part, the hours are the same amount of time in the day. Yet we've gotten rid of certain classes and things that we used to teach that aren't in class anymore. We haven't added math classes or history or science or anything like that. So why are kids less educated, right? Nowadays, school scores and everything are down more, and they're not understanding basic math, basic reading, and all those kind of things compared to when we were in school and our parents and grandparents were in school. Why is that? There should be more time to dedicate towards basic curriculum than there was back in our day. And yet they have less of an education with more stuff available to them right now than ever has been with the internet and just plain old Google, being able to Google answers for anything. We used to have to go into the library, get an encyclopedia. I don't even think they know what the word encyclopedia is. It's a non-existent word. Or library. Yeah, right. So,
but let's not, and you've hit some good points, but let's not forget who the culprit is here. Who's the fire starter to these family breakups that are happening now?
Fire starter.
I'm going to tell you right now who that is. It's the social media outlet. That's what it is, right? Those things, they teach kids to tell the world their version of their story, their version, right, of their story. Of course, it's one-sided. It's emotionally loaded, right? And then what happens when they unload it? They get rewarded, right, with likes and comments like, you're so brave. You're a hero. You stand up for your rights. You show your parents who's won. That's just ridiculous, right? Meanwhile, though, that same parent they're trashing online, that they're just talking crazy about, is on their computer paying their phone bill, checking if they made it home safe, making sure there's food on the table and in the fridge. That's their concern. That's what they're focusing on. Meanwhile, they're getting trashed by this kid that was not acknowledged for using a different set of pronouns. Online parents are now the oppressors. If you look and you go to these social media sites, and I'm talking adult kids, calling their parents oppressors, right? My mom didn't accept my new pronoun. Becomes like an escape to emotional abuse. Like we've redefined abuse so broadly that it's meaningless now, right? Like everything is labeled abuse. How you look at someone, how you address them, how you say goodbye to them, how you look at every little aspect is now scrutinized by people because their feelings are now impacted. We used to build character. We used to build our children by challenges. We would challenge our children. And I don't mean like, hey, I challenge you. No, we challenge them to do the right thing because we would instruct them. We'd tell them, hey, don't put your hands on the stove because it's hot. That's a challenge for a child, right? Like, is he going to do it? Is he not going to do it? Right?
Don't press the red button.
Right. And if they do, guess what happens? They either get burned, they get hurt, something happens, but they learn. Their challenge met, right? And they're not going to touch it again. Now those challenges, bro, those challenges are now labeled as trauma. Those are traumatic moments. How did you let me touch that? Now I know why I have so many callus on my ass is because of those whips I used to get from my dad's belt. It made me a stronger ass person. My glutes are at the peak, bro.
Peak performance level.
Oh, my goodness gracious. But, the point is that could you imagine if our generation, even the boomers, would label the things that we went through as trauma? Bro, we'd be institutionalized. But these kids nowadays, everything that creates a challenge to them is labeled trauma. They don't want to challenge themselves. They don't want to push forward. They don't want to deal with it, right? And instead of reconciliation, the solution is to block your own father on Father's Day. He's dead to me. He traumatized me because he yelled at me, because he didn't use they, them. Right? Or whatever the case is. And that is the problem with today's generation. The adult generation is that they're so quick to point the finger here and there at mom and dad and grandparents, whatever, but have zero accountability when it comes to their own actions, right? Because no one's forcing them to do the things they did, or no one's forced them in the situations they are, but they never allowed the parent to challenge them. Or if they did, Now they're crying wolf. Now they're actors saying, I've been traumatized and now I got to go to therapy and blah, blah, blah. Because of you, I can't have a normal relationship with men. No, maybe it's your toxic trait that doesn't allow that to happen. Maybe it's your alcoholism or the fact that you like to be a hoe or that you have an OnlyFans page. Maybe that's the problem with your relationships and not how dad disciplined you or mom, and that's the problem that we're facing today. And here's the thing. What are we really losing, Jay? What are we left with? We're left with a generation that knows how to set boundaries, but not how to build bridges. Hell, this generation, boy, you talk about boundaries, unless it's the wall, then everybody's like, the wall. Anyway, that's a different story. Anyway, but they know how to put boundaries around them to protect their very thin, tender skins. They're destroying bridges. That, like you and I, we had great bridges built with our grandparents. We learned so much from them. They would tell us how they raised their parents, and they would tell us stories about our own parents. Like, you know what, your dad hit you for that, but he used to do the same thing. And I used to whip his little ass for that too. It's like, and you know what you do? You connect. You're like, I'm not so different than my dad. And then you start thinking, like, then why did he hit me for doing that? But then your grandparents tell you it's because he split his head, and I had to take him to the doctor to get his head back because he wouldn't stop climbing the tree after I told him 15 times not to climb it. We've lost that. Those bridges are gone because now grandparents are toxic too, because they created our parents who are toxic. We're watching families fracture, not from dysfunction, because, everybody has a little bit of dysfunction in their family, but from emotional oversensitivity and a culture that rewards victimhood over maturity, right? But he's a victim. And where else would you shine as a victim? On social media, bro. You won't shine as a victim out in the hood or out in society. No one's going to look at you like, oh, poor. But you go on social media, man, you get them likes, you get them comments. You're a hero to all those blue-haired, purple people-eating people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Well, you look at kind of going back to the whole school thing, right? Things like math. Math has been said to be rooted in racism, right? Because 4 + 4 is 8, and that's the
infinity symbol.
It's just crazy that math is one of those constant things in the universe. We use it to calculate things in space and on land and everything, and we know math is a constant. Math doesn't care about your color, doesn't care where you came from. If you crossed the border, you didn't cross the border, you're gay, you're straight, you're vegan, it doesn't care. And the fact that they turn math, schooling, and all these things into like this systematic issue, right, that kids now are having. Well, gosh, kids back in the day, the ones that launched the first rocket ships, that put the first airplanes in the air, that invented half of the stuff that you use right now. You're probably watching this on a phone. Those are people that were pretty good at math. Or if you're watching this on a computer or an app on a TV screen, all of those people were pretty good at math. So, not to make this about math or anything else like that, these are the things that are being lost. And part of that, you're 100% right, Joe. Future generations are losing contact with older generations. If you look at things like right now, the whole border crisis is a big deal, right? And what's the one thing saying? This is stolen land. Stolen from who? The Native Americans. Okay, fine. So what did the Native Americans do? They passed down their stories and beliefs and understanding through generations. Now, the new generations obviously learn new languages, learn new things, picked up on current culture, but one of the most important things for them to do was remember their ancestors' cultures. And what are the newest generations doing now? They don't know the language anymore. They're losing everything from the past. And now they are complaining the most about stolen land that their ancestors were a part of, that they have no care for anymore. They don't care about their ancestors. In fact, they don't like them because they're like, well, you let all this happen to us. And this is the same thing. And right now, currently, if you looked at statistics, white people in the United States, of course, make up the biggest part of the population, but they're the ones that are turning against their parents more than anybody else. They make up the biggest percentage of new Democrat voters. They make up the biggest percentage of people dyeing their hair blue. They make up so all of these things heading in that direction that are anti-parent, their ancestors has really changed.
Yeah.
So yeah. And our future generations going to basically, elders won't exist for them anymore. There's no roots and no reconciliation for that. So how do we fight back on that, Joe? How do we fight back against?
Well, here's the thing real quick, just going back on that a little bit, on touching on that. And I think the reason that we're burning our bridges and we're losing a lot of this connections is because we've elevated emotions over everything. And when I mean everything like truth, tradition, which is something you just talked about, but even biology, all of that has been diminished diminished because we've elevated emotions or feeling. Kids are now convinced that their parents are like their enemies. Why? Why do they feel that way? Because they don't co-sign their new identity or lifestyle, and because of that, they're the enemy. But here's the thing, here's a kicker, Jay. Real love doesn't mean agreeing with someone all the time. That's
100%.
not real love, right? Real love is messy. It argues, it forgives, it wrestles with truth. They're not just feelings, and everyone's so focused on putting everything in a feeling, in an emotion, that they forget that when you love someone, you want the best for them, right? Even if it hurts them. People don't get that. People's like, if you love me, you shouldn't be hurting me. Well, guess what? You're a knucklehead, and sometimes my love is going to hurt you. But here's the kicker, bro. 10 years from now, a lot of these same kids that we're talking about will be sitting in therapy again. Yeah. But this time they're going to be grieving the relationships that they burned for clout and emotional comfort. So all the parents, all those things are going to be sitting there crying about those things. So like you just asked me, how do we fight back? What do we do? As a parent, as a sibling, as a friend, I think the one thing is stop walking on eggshells. Just stop being soft. Speak the truth, man. Speak it. Now, I'm not saying speak it like our parents spoke it to us, because sometimes it felt like they didn't love us, right? Because we were knuckleheads. We were the guys that would race our bikes with our monkey bar bikes handle and the banana seat over a ramp, and we lost a testicle. We were just knuckleheads. So they had to talk to us a little bit different. But what I'm saying is, as a parent, as a brother, as a sister, as a friend, stop walking on eggshells, man. Tell them the truth. Speak the truth, with love. Like I said, with love, but with a backbone, man. I mean, that's something you and I on our journey in our Christianity finally sat down and said, hey, bro, look, you got to be honest with me. If you see me in a situation I probably shouldn't be in, tell me the truth. Stop coding it, right? Why? Because we were doing the same thing. We were affirming each other's craziness, and we should not do that. So that's number one. 2, don't apologize for having values. Never apologize for having values. You should be proud that you have values. I think Generation X, even millennials, are very proud of having their values, because, the millennials, those are Gen X kids. We instilled some values in them. If your kid calls your belief system bigoted just because you don't support every whim they have, hold the line, bro. Hold the line and remind them you're the child, man. I'm 50 years old. I've lived this life. I don't know what you're talking about. Hold the line. You're a parent. You're an adult. You've gone through this, right? So first step, don't walk on eggshells, tell the truth. I mean, with love. Do it with love, a little compassion, a little empathy. And 2, don't apologize for having values. Number 3, something that you and I do more frequently now is pray, because only God can soften a heart that's been hardened by ideology disguised as therapy. And that's what it is. It's ideology. I've seen a lot of those little red strings, little Buddha, little red strings on people's wrists, and it's just weird to me. What is that helping you? Like the moon aligns with, I don't know. It's just crazy. Pray. Very important. I think that's something that we all should be doing regardless of situation. I think as a family unit, we should all pray. And lastly, these are your kids. Don't give up on them. Even if they block you today, leave the porch light on, right? Because those little suckers are going to come back no matter what, right? Leave the door open. Truth takes root eventually, but we have to be consistent. And that's the other problem. As parents, we give up. Why? Because we have to deal with the backlash of these children that, they all want to go to therapy. They all want, if it's TikTok therapy, it's going to be Starbucks therapy or whatever therapy that they need. They're always seeking answers that are irrelevant to their problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we have to not give up. As parents, never give up on your children. I can't stress that enough. There's sometimes that you feel that you're going to go and you're going to feel defeated, man. You're going to feel like I can't do this. But you know what? Your parents did it with you. You do it with them. You just can't give up. And then the good thing about that is when the truth does take root, they're going to turn back years from now and say, my parents had the patience for me too. And they were consistent and they were persistent. And here I am today. I think those are the 4 main things that we need to focus on. And again, guys, we see things and we say them like they are. And we're not going to sugarcoat it because, again, this is Outspoken, man. Our truth matters, not yours. So,
right? So I want to leave us with this. So this is a quote, and if you guys know where it's from, please leave it below. I'm sorry I can't give credit to where credit's due. I only have the poetic quote here. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard. And being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt is hard, and being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Starting a business is hard, and working a 9-to-5 job is hard. Choose your hard. Life will never be easy, but you can choose your hard. With that being said, today we have so many things that we want to make everything in life so much easier. And we know this, and everybody in the audience knows this too. Computers, right, have kind of made things simpler. But have you ever sat down on a new computer system and maybe where you work at, they say, we are doing this new upgrade and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to make everything easier. And dang it, if it's not just harder, you got to input more stuff and change more things and do a bunch of more stupid stuff. And it didn't make it easier. The thing is that life is not easy, and it was never designed to be easy. And one of the biggest things that we know in life is that people that persevere, people that go through the challenges and make it through to the other side usually have the best time in life. And there's people, whether you like them or not, people like Arnold Schwarzenegger that, were in another country, came and look at what the guy accomplished here. If you would have said when he was a kid that he would have been the governor of one of the, the biggest states in the nation, he would have been an actor, and he would have married a Kennedy. Think about all those things.
And had an affair?
And had an affair, yeah.
No.
And I'm not saying the guy's
with the maid?
I'm not saying the guy's a role model in any way. However, these are things. And why did he get all of that stuff? A lot of perseverance, right?
Dedication.
Yep. People told him he would never make it. You'll never make it. It'll never happen for you. It won't happen. If you tell that to most people in this generation now, they will believe those words. It will never happen. Yeah. So you need to believe in yourself, and you need to really get out there and push yourself and make it happen.
Absolutely.
And you can do it. You can do it. Come back and check out our channel, because we're always trying to encourage you to do better, pray more, and all that kind of good stuff. Join us next week as we have JD Vance on the show, Vice President. Oh, wait a minute. I read that wrong. It's the guy that used to make Jordache pants. Sorry about that. So.
Jesus. I'm like, what? We got that?
We got that?
Yeah. Nice.
So, all right. Well,
that's good, man. So, guys, remember, speak truth, love fiercely, and maybe, just maybe, call your mom.
Give her a call.
Talking to.
Yep. Yeah, you got to remember, there will be a last time for everybody that you'll get a phone call or a text from them. So just remember that and make the best out of every moment of life, because it's very precious. Well, before we get out of here, make sure and smash that like button, subscribe to Outspoken, share the show with everyone you know, and hit the bell icon to get updated whenever we upload a new episode. Well, take care of one another.
Do better, be better.
And as always, God bless America.
We'll see you guys next week, man. Have a great week.
See you next Tuesday. Stay blessed.